offer support for ways to make life easier for the people, for the dogs, and provide enrichment. The more data we have and the more we'll about these dogs.
Welcome to Dog Cancer Answers, where we help you help your dog with cancer.
Dr. Michelle White, thank you so much for joining us today on Dog Cancer Answers.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
I was reading just yesterday an article in the AP about how dog breeds and their temperaments do not necessarily, they don't match up to what our descriptions of them are or what our assumptions of them are. And
that was
all
us,
dogs
yeah.
are unique. That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's our study from Darwin's work, yeah.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about that study.
I came in at the very tail end of that work. That's, 6 years in the making. And lots of people in the lab were involved. Kathleen Morrill is the first author on that. She's a very brilliant graduate student. And she and the rest of the team, they used data from, the thousands and thousands of dogs that have, whose owners have joined up with Darwin's Ark and answered so many surveys about their dogs, and contributed, in many cases, a saliva sample that we were that the lab sequenced to look at some of the genetic variation, and they were able to link the genetic information, the breed reported information, and what's based on these validated survey questions that were chosen because they had been shown to get at what we were actually looking for, those behaviors that we assign to certain breeds, but also that vary so widely between different dogs. So owners were telling us about their dogs and performing lots of looking at that data so many different ways. There are several different analyses in the paper that same information and distill it in different ways, distill it into certain factors where we are asking the question sometimes, 5, 6 times in a different way to make sure that we're actually, we're getting really great survey data that sort of is, validates itself in some ways, just making sure it's consistent. And then we're able to find that, some behavior types were more likely to be associated with breed than others. Some were more likely to not necessarily be associated with a specific breed, but with certain shared genetic loci. And some were just really not that predictable with either, depending on the breed or depending on what genotypes a dog had inherited. They were more variable than you would expect based on pretty much everyone's biases of what dog breeds are.
So dogs, it seems, are individuals.
Yes. And I think the really cool thing about a study like this is there's many cool things. One is the power of, the community giving this data to us and partnering with us in this study to find these important things. What some of the cool things about the findings are, I think they're good news for both purebred dogs and mixed breed dogs, because, we have certain expectations for certain breed dogs. And when dogs don't, Margie Alonso, one of the behaviorists that worked on the paper, she used to see a lot of dogs that the owners thought there was something wrong with them, and they would seek out medication or behavioral intervention, because they expected a border collie to act a certain way and be high energy and they thought there was something wrong with the dog when really
they didn't expect a couch potato in a border collie.
Yes. And right. And I think that is, so that's good news for purebred dogs. And I think as far as mixed breed dogs go, it shows that, a lot of the reasons I hear that, people shy away from rescuing if they do want to get a dog from a breeder is because they want some predictable behavior quality. And I think that's good news for mixed breed dogs now if we'd be better off getting to know a dog that we're thinking about adopting rather than just assuming that they are going to act a certain way of the breed that they are.
That's fascinating. So that's the kind of information, though, you can only gain through these really in-depth, detailed surveys that you do at Darwin's Ark.
Such funding that I'll mention might be easier to get now that the Darwin's Ark study exists. But one of the things that has kept veterinary research from advancing like we'd like it to is just it's hard to get funding that is dog research for dog's sake. There are plenty of studies where dogs serve as a model for something for humans. But when the research involves dogs to help dogs, like researching their behavior, seeing what makes them happy, what they're like, that funding is generally pretty lacking. And what funding is there tends to be small and hard to come by. So we don't tend to get big numbers when it comes to something that you might think of as more controlled, like a board certified veterinary behaviorist evaluating each dog on these same parameters. That would be nearly impossible to get the numbers and over the course of 6 years, like our study. So although there's some inherent messiness with real world answers and surveyed answers. But what happened, you expect that, biases will be random. When you take when you allow anyone to, there are some biases with who will join, an online community. But I mean, accepting open enrollment for these things, when you get the numbers, it can swamp out a lot of that noise, especially when you're using validated survey questions, and you can get these big numbers and sample, such a larger portion of the country than you could if you were bringing people in to be evaluated by an expert and eliminating that noise. So there's a huge trade-off in what you can accomplish, especially in a veterinary study.
Sure. That's interesting that there isn't that much research funding for dogs' sake. Why do you think that is? People just don't care about dogs.
Well, they certainly do. It's, but people that, people do care about dogs. I think when you care about a dog and you have a dog, I'm both a veterinarian and a geneticist, and it's very obvious when you're a veterinarian that no matter how much you care, that the generally out-of-pocket nature of veterinary medicine, very few people have pet insurance. I think it's a wonderful idea when people can get pet insurance, but most people don't have it, and most people don't have unlimited funds. So I think there are plenty of people that are interested in the research. It's just not as, if you think of the government spending tax dollars, that's not necessarily the first place that the public would want funds to go. We have, plenty of human issues to deal with. And then when it comes to privately funded, there are many great animal charities. It's just they don't have, the same backing that, the NIH does, or, some of the big government agencies. And there is funding from the big government agencies, especially in cases where, dogs get similar diseases to what humans get. But yeah, like for dog's sake, it makes sense, and it's sad at the same time.
It is. It makes sense, and it's sad. It's difficult to rationalize on a funder's level. It's difficult to say, well, we have all of these human needs, and then we have these dog needs, and which one helps more? Where's your money really going? So I'm one of those crazy people who contributed to 23andMe like within the first 6 months it was open. And it has vastly increased my own understanding of my own health. Would you say that this is a similar program? There's
a few caveats with where we're at right now in terms of genetics in the canine space, especially the consumer testing and the veterinary testing space. So for the same reasons we were just discussing, there aren't the same, giant studies and longitudinal studies like we have in human medicine, like the Framingham Heart Project. We don't have those same depth of understanding of how genetics impact, especially certain disease-related variants, genetic variants that we found. We don't have the same research behind all of those variants, and we also, when we have found something, one of the low-hanging fruit, as it were, when we were first doing genetic studies in dogs, it is easier to sort of spot the difference when it comes to why does a control dog have this disease or this this risk factor or trait, and this dog not. It's easier to find what the genetic difference is when you do the study in one single breed of dogs, because for the most part, their genetics are very similar, and it's easier to see a variant that might be responsible for what you're interested in to pop out. And so a lot of the knowledge that we have is, how does this genetic variant affect a dog of this breed? And we don't know if, say a mixed breed dog or another breed of dog that has that same variant, how it might play out in a dog that doesn't have all of the rest of that same very similar DNA of a breed. So because of that, and because of an additional lack of regulation like human medicine and human consumer testing has, there are certain things you're allowed to say and not allowed to say in human medicine. And we don't have those same rules for the dog consumer testing. So Darwin's Ark takes a conservative approach when it comes to reporting health data. They don't report, they will report breed ancestry to a participant that has their dog's genetic, their DNA sequence, but they do not report possible health-related variants. Whereas there are other companies like Embark, like Wisdom Panel, that will share the
more
dog's
medically
genotype.
Oriented.
Yep.
Yeah, that could be
and
used
risk
in
factors. Right. And then there are veterinary products or veterinary tests. Many are specific for a disease of suspicion. Like we are going to test because we suspect this might be related to a genetic disease. And those are, those tend to be performed at universities and, more, both, all are performed in high quality labs. It's just, we don't have the same exact regulations to know exactly which standards are being met.
Right. So it's similar in that you're creating a huge database from people who are basically volunteering their dog's DNA, and even in many cases, I'm assuming that people choose to pay, because there's 3 tiers. Is that what I read? So if they choose to participate and send in a spit sample and fill out hours and hours worth of surveys, it's because in the future, hopefully, we will be able to bring together all of that data, and you guys will be able to make some direct building a database to spawn new research and make new studies available, and maybe even make some recommendations to individual veterinarians about individual dogs. Is that fair?
Yeah, hopefully. I think, yes, that's certainly something we'd be interested in the future. That we hope for in the future to be able to give a heads up for certain risk factors, that especially those that that intervention can change, whether that's I speak about so my dog is a beagle, and he beagles aren't the poster child like dachshunds are for the slipping a vertebral disc in their spine, which can lead to paralysis and often requires surgical intervention. But because I know that he's at risk, we have lots of pet stairs so that he's not hopping off our bed and my son's bed, and sort of jerking his spine around, things like that. If you can intervene, knowing that there's a risk factor, yes, those are things that we'd especially hope to do. And then also, when it comes to diagnosing, yeah, of course, the more data we have and the more we know about these dogs, yes, the easier that becomes for us in the future.
Right. So it's about collecting data now, knowing that it's going to pay off for future dogs.
Yes. Yes, there's, and like the study that just came out, that was made possible by the people that signed up, by the people, so not just the people that had their DNA sequence, or sorry, the dogs that had their DNA sequence, but the dogs that, were reported to be a certain breed or have a certain ancestry, and we have lots of behavioral surveys on them, they contribute as well. So yeah, everybody participates in it. Some really cool things come out of it.
Yeah. And it seems to me like, well, I'm putting myself in your shoes as a genetics researcher. This must be very exciting to know that the database is growing and you're going to learn more and more and more.
Right. So the two things that, I love the most are veterinary medicine and genetics. And it's unbelievable, the interest that has spiked, over the last decade or so, the resources that have become available. It's really, really, it's an exciting time.
Absolutely. I think genetics is hot right now, right? We're just beginning to understand how it actually works, rather than just sort of saying, oh, it must be genes, it must be genetic. We're now actually being able to say it is, and it's this specific gene.
Right.
Right. It is very exciting. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, because this is Dog Cancer Answers, tell me a little bit about the Cancer Project.
Right. So the Cancer Project was, we just launched this. It's only been, probably a month now that the site has been live. But the Darwin's Ark Cancer Project is, under the Darwin's Ark umbrella. It's a project where we are including where dogs, for owners, for pet parents that have a dog with a cancer diagnosis, whether they're currently dealing with a cancer diagnosis, whether they, they're in remission or they've been considered cured of cancer, they can enroll in this project, answer some surveys that are specific to the project. But they're also, once they're enrolled in the Cancer Project, they're part of the Darwin's Ark community as well. So they could answer all the other surveys that we have. Oh,
so if our listeners wanted to contribute to the Cancer Project, you would recommend they go ahead and do that, and then they'll be included in the larger pool of genetics.
You don't need to, the genetics piece is separate somewhat. Okay. Because anyone with a dog can join the Darwin's Ark Project, answer the surveys, and so same with the Cancer Project. Okay. You can join, you can answer the surveys and participate in the project. We also have a Facebook group that where we have some of our animal behaviorists and some of the scientists to come and discuss the science, discuss to be supportive of each other, because everyone's dealing with or has dealt with a cancer diagnosis, and offer support for ways to make life easier for the people, for the dogs, and provide enrichment, deal with mobility issues, things like that. And so anyone can participate in that has a dog that's eligible. And then, yes, if the dog, if you'd like to, you're also considered, you're a part of the Darwin's Ark Project. So yes, you could answer the other surveys as well.
And once you do that, it's a richer experience for you as a researcher. You would like people to go ahead and fill out those surveys.
Yeah, it tells us a lot. The cancer-specific surveys, we're trying to gather lots of lifestyle-related information. We know that some cancer risk, we see it pocketed throughout the country in people, and sometimes certain cancers have been associated with certain air quality differences with certain presence of certain chemicals or like
there's
traffic,
environmental risks that are localized where, we know like there are certain known carcinogens that are concentrated in an area for whatever reason. There's
right.
many-
And even, levels of sun. So, whether people are exposed to UV. So we gather lots of lifestyle information on the dogs. And we also, ask for certain exposures that might occur outside or inside the home. There's we're partnering with Oregon State scientists who are experts in environmental toxicology and passive sampling. And what passive sampling means, it's basically, in our case, there will be this a small subset of dogs within the Cancer Project that will get to wear a silicone dog tag. This is based on a discovery that when everyone was wearing, the Livestrong bracelets and the silicone bracelets, they have found that those that material is very good at capturing the exposure that the person has to certain gas-based pollutants. Yes, so that can include certain plasticides or related compounds, certain combustion byproducts, things like that. And
that's amazing.
Yes. So the scientists at Oregon State they looked at these dog tags. Well, they were cat tags in the study that I'm mentioning, where cats wore on their collars a little silicone tag, and they found by studying cats that were diagnosed with hyperthyroidism versus cats that were not. This is a common disease where cats, their thyroid grows sort of out of control and their metabolism goes way up, and they tend to get very thin before we realize what's going on. And it can be without treatment, a cat can just waste away. If you don't catch this. So what they found with the passive samplers, they were able to find a certain flame retardant that cats were exposed to, were more likely to be exposed to if they were in the hyperthyroid group. And
my word.
So these sorts of things make sense because our cats are, always snuggling on our furniture, and there are certain chemicals that we've used on those on products where your cat might actually be more of a sentinel than you, because they tend to stay at home, they don't go to work, and they're dealing with these things all the time. So we are going to have a subset of dogs wear these tags, and they'll be spread throughout the country, and we're going to see what we pick up in an initial pilot sampling, and then we're going to see what we find and narrow down what we're looking for and sample more dogs to see if we find similar patterns elsewhere.
If that works out, do you think someday when you sign up for Darwin's Ark and you join, you're going to get yourself a silicone dog tag for your dog?
That would be amazing.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
If we could get to the point where, yes, we can prove that this is useful enough, where we could do that, that would be wonderful.
Amazing. Because, of course, whatever the cat or the dog is being exposed to, this all goes to human medicine as well. It could profoundly change. Yeah,
in North Carolina State, there was a study that did match up silicone dog tags and human bracelets, so that they were partnered, and they did show a big correlation between what the human was exposed to and the dog and their dog.
Wow. So is that something you get to choose, or is that something you guys are going to decide on the back end, as they say, about which dog gets a tag?
So we're enrolling right now. So and the paper has certainly given us given more people awareness. So we've seen this in enrollees. So we're going to choose based on we're going to try to maximize finding something actionable, or something where we can. It'll be tricky. So we might, depending on who enrolls and which cancers we're talking about, which locations we have people, and what their surveys look like. We we're not sure exactly how we're going to try to distribute those samples. So it's not clear at this point because we don't have all the information we need. But
you haven't collected all the data.
So we're not just interested in what the tags say. We're interested in how the findings from the tags correlate to the surveys as well. Because since everyone's not going to get a tag, what the tags tell us about how accurate or certain biases might be in the survey data, that can actually help us use the survey data more effectively in using them as a proxy for what the tags show us. So there's a lot of factors to consider when it comes to using the tags and linking them up with what we see on the surveys.
In your Twitter bio, you call yourself a genetics nerd.
Yes.
And I can see how exciting this is for you.
Yes. I had always wanted to be a veterinarian. And when I showed up at college, I had that laser focus of how to get those requirements met and get on my way to being a veterinarian. And I took my freshman genetics course. My professor's name is Dan Hartle. And I really geeked out. It was one of those things where that you sort of lost connection with how other people feel, because it's hard for me to remember that other people might not think this is that exciting. It's hard for me to empathize with people, who are not thinking this is ridiculously cool, these things that he's saying. This class is amazing, right? I mean, he's a very well-respected scientist. So I think, there's a bias that many people think what Dan Hartle does is cool. But I was very confused about what am I going to do? I can't, because, at the time, that there wasn't a besides, breeding or, the genetics, that they were still a big deal in the seeing eye dog breeding community, things like that. There just wasn't a place I could see myself doing both. And now it's obvious. But I could not picture which job I was going to do for quite some time.
Veterinarian or geneticist. And then
yes, right.
You found a way to do both.
Yes. And I really am, Eleanor's lab, Dr. Carlson's lab. And she's the head scientist that founded Darwin's Ark. It really is that place. There are several DVM PhDs, clinician scientists that have worked with Eleanor as opposed, in addition to many other diverse scientists, and it's like a dream team, because I really get to use both sides of myself in my work, because it is very important to know about health, about how the body works, about how animals' bodies work, but also to know what to look for and which genetic variants, what they can do, what that might look like, and how to find out how they might be related to what we see in the clinic.
This show is brought to you by dogcancer.com, where over 40 veterinarians, veterinary oncologists, cancer researchers, and science writers pull together to bring you better information today so you have no regrets tomorrow. We do the research, we talk to the folks in the trenches, and sift through the hype and the anecdotes. That's dogcancer.com. Start your own research at dogcancer.com today so you have no regrets tomorrow. So do you feel like you're on the leading edge of veterinary understanding, that clinicians a year to 10 years from now are going to be taught what you're learning now? People who graduate 10 years from now are going to be learning what you are just beginning to understand at Darwin's Ark? Oh,
that's a really good question. I really hope so. I think, it's so tough to squeeze into 4 years of veterinary school all the things that a veterinarian needs to know. Mm-hmm. And genetics has gotten a very small chunk of the curriculum previously. Sort of the blast off of all the genetic technologies has left. There's a lot of vets practicing today that didn't get, probably feel like they don't have a proper background to understand, to be able to teach, because it's not just understanding. Every veterinarian is capable of understanding the genetics, but having to then teach it to an owner or a pet's parent, a pet guardian, takes even more confidence. And I think, I'm very impressed with all the veterinarians that I meet and how quickly they've caught up, even while they're, staying on top of so many other advances in medicine. But I really do hope that we can prepare vet students, with these updates to hopefully get them more confident and ready to teach, ready to get those results, whether they come from a consumer test or were sent by the veterinarian themselves. Help them be confident in interpreting that data and using it to tailor the practice of medicine to an individual. That's my dream for veterinarians, to be able to do it and to like doing it. And that's where I try to translate my excitement into something that, veterinarians have to, when you're practicing, you have to keep everything in mind, especially a general practitioner. And it's so challenging, especially now. Veterinarians are so swamped with, they're understaffed. Still with the pandemic, they are understaffed. So many more animals were adopted during the pandemic. So, I know it's tough. I keep that in mind as I try to spread the great news about genetic advancements. I'm very aware of the limited time that the veterinarians have to pick this up. And I hope, yes, that there won't be as much catching up to do with new veterinarians in the future.
It's very exciting. So if somebody wanted to join Darwin's Ark or specifically the Cancer Project, what's the procedure? How much does it cost? What's the involvement that you have? Like, walk us through the project.
So they can go to Darwin's Ark, darwinsark.org.
We'll make sure that the links are in the show notes.
Yeah. Okay. And then you will, there are some enrollment forms that you sign just to make sure that you understand what the research is for, and agree to have your dog as part of the project. And then basically you'll get this My Laboratory will open up of like your homepage within the Darwin's Ark project. And you will enter your dog's information, your information. There'll be some breeds, or you can enter, if you know a predominant mixed, or you can choose multiple breeds, age, things like that. Some of the basic stats of your dog and your dog's name. You can upload a photo if you like. And then you can choose to go onto the surveys, but there's also an option to enroll in the Darwin's Ark Cancer Project.
Oh, okay. So it's the same way to get in, whether, okay, great.
Yeah. And I should mention, of course, there are people that are just finding out about the Cancer Project, or those that, were dealing with a dog with cancer. And unfortunately, we know a lot of dogs pass away. And I do get questions about, if my dog has recently passed away, can I join, on their behalf? And we are allowing dogs that have, if the dog has passed within the past calendar year, they are still eligible to sign up for Darwin's Ark Cancer Project. We have to limit the amount of time that's passed based on parameters that affect survey.
You want to make sure
we don't
that
want too much time to pass.
Right. They still remember accurately all the little things.
And we're sorry for that. We don't mean to say that people will forget, but it's part of keeping certain standards to make sure our data is standardized in some way. So I believe they will be able to answer the surveys for the Cancer Project. I don't believe that dogs that have passed away, I don't think the other Darwin's Ark surveys will be available to them, but you would still be able to fill out the cancer-specific surveys.
Wonderful. So people can contribute even if they're, a lot of people, when their dogs pass from cancer especially, I hear every day people say, I want to give back. I want to help dogs in the future. Like, dog lovers are a breed apart, we like to say at Dog Podcast Network. And they really like to help dogs. And so this is wonderful that you're allowing them to participate in some way, even if the worst is past.
Yeah. There is one other, there's another part of the study that I forgot to mention. And I think this will especially, there are other dogs that may be selected to have a kit sent to them where we will be including a blood draw tube for those dogs. So when they're going to their veterinarian or their oncologist, it can basically be added on and drawn at the same time as their other blood work. So we're asking, since we don't have the options available to us like Quest Diagnostics, we're going to be relying on a courtesy draw from the veterinarian. So hopefully, if we can add this to in the dog's regular appointment, then those dogs that are participating in this study can then there's an included box and packaging and FedEx label that can then just be sent back to us. And for that, we are looking to see how we're looking to get circulating tumor DNA, which is DNA that exists in the blood from tumor cells that have ruptured and release their contents into the blood. And that tends to happen because cancer is quickly growing. We tend to see it's released often enough in the blood where we can usually pick that up, especially with certain cancers that tend to have more yield of this DNA. We are going to be taking that DNA, sequencing it, and looking to both advance this. It's a much less invasive technology, an emerging technology. It's less invasive than taking a biopsy. And it also, it tells us many of the same things that we would get from sequencing an actual tumor biopsy, but it also can tell us some things that we couldn't tell from a tumor biopsy, which is sometimes we see mutations that were not in the original tumor, but they might belong to a distant metastases or a tumor that's, a secondary or tumor that is located in some place that we couldn't easily biopsy. So there are, and because this is a less invasive technology, there are so many more potential applications for multiple repeat sampling, monitoring cancer response to surgery or chemotherapy, and also in the future, trying to pick up recurrence or a relapse before we actually see something on imaging or the dog appears sick. If we can catch it sooner by doing repeat sampling in the future, because we know exactly which variants are common or even specific variants to an individual dog, if we get there, where that's something that people can afford, and we can make it work, then maybe we can catch relapse sooner. And then once we get really good at that, maybe we can be, screening dogs and catching multiple cancers before we would otherwise have diagnosed them.
Right, because too often we catch it too late.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's really interesting. So when someone joins Darwin's Ark, sets up, says, I want to be part of the cancer project, then you guys will look at everything else that they've submitted and then decide whether or not to send out that sample kit, which they can take to their veterinarian for a really quick, easy blood draw. The veterinarian ships it off via the enclosed packaging.
So the vet hand the tube back. We've got the packaging all ready to go, and they can just drop it in a FedEx box.
Oh, that's wonderful. And then if you wanted to do a follow-up, you would send them another tube later. Or
in this study, we won't. We'll be taking one sample maximum. For those dogs that are selected. But yes, in the future, that's what we hope to. That's one amazing potential application of the blood biopsy technology.
So for the cancer project, you are also, in some cases, not all, testing the tumor's genetics. But otherwise, you're focused just on the dog's genetics.
Yes. So,
Okay.
and not the tumor biopsy, but yes, the circulating tumor DNA. So yes, in a certain
Right.
subset of
Circulating.
cases. And then, yes. So, right. And that is separate from what you would get from a salivary swab, which for the most part should not contain any tumor DNA, but would be the DNA that the dog is born with. Yes.
Right. Because there's the dog's genetics and there's the tumor's genetics. Okay.
Right.
So in general, when people are joining Darwin's Ark, they're getting their dog's genetics tested.
Yes. If they qualify for a swab or they pay to have a swab analyzed, ahead of the time funding would allow, then yes, they're analyzing their dog's what we call germline DNA, or the DNA you're born with, not a tumor that's popped up. So how much does it cost if you want to, because my understanding is there's a wait list and you can skip to the head if you are willing to make a donation, willing and able to make a donation to the project so that it can get funded. I did not, the costs are updated as sequence technology prices change.
Sure.
There are 3 levels. One to get a kit early for what we call low pass sequencing, and then there's sort of a Cadillac sequencing, what we call our trailblazer dogs, where you can pay to get them sequenced at a depth that allows them to be instead of with the second level where you're paying to get a swab early, you can find out things like breed ancestry. But our trailblazer samples, those dogs, not only do we get a better idea of all of the variation within not just the breed ancestry specific, but they also can serve as very important foundational members of genetic research, because we sequence them at a high depth that tells us very confidently what variation they have in their genome.
I see. So sort of, so if you wait, and if you're on the wait list and you don't pay, do you get that, how did you put it? The lower level,
there's
first bypass?
it's we call it low pass sequencing. It's basically
low pass
sequencing that's not as
it's not as in depth.
It's not as in depth. Yes. So if you fill out all your, I think it's at least 10 surveys in the normal Darwin's Ark project to qualify for, when funding allows, we'll send you a swab and you will be on the wait list for the low pass sequencing. If your dog is up from the wait list, you can then you will get your dog's breed ancestry report, and then there's something separate. If you pay for the in-depth sequencing, you get a more detailed report.
Okay.
But even if you do not pay, if you're up for a swab and your dog, it may take it's an indefinite amount of time, depending on when we get funding that your dog, based on the surveys or based on whatever a certain grant is looking for, we don't exactly know when your sample might get sequenced.
I see. So you have this large pool of dogs that you could sequence. You've got all of their surveys filled out, all of these accounts set up, people who are willing to participate. And then your funders are earmarking certain funds, in some cases, for certain projects. And you guys can go look at your pool and say, oh, look, we have 100 dogs that would actually be a really good inclusion in this particular funding grant. So that money can pay for those sequences.
Yes.
I see. That's wonderful.
Right.
So what we want is for people to give money for general purpose sequencing so everybody can get their sequences.
Yes. Or, if you, and certainly if you think, as more people participate, then we see more trends that are interesting. Yes. So it might not even be multi-purpose. It might be just that, the more sequences we have, the more we start to see that something's different over here, or, dogs that have this quality seem to have something else in common, or the more data you have, the more questions pop up. It's always, it never ends.
Wonderful. Well, we are about to wrap up. So I wanted to ask you, you are an oncologist, correct?
No, I'm not a boarded oncologist. I do not. I spend a lot of time thinking about cancer and oncology, but no, I'm not a specialist.
Okay. Well, then I wanted to ask you, as a veterinarian and a geneticist, what's something you know for sure about dog cancer that you wish every dog lover knew about dog cancer?
Oh, one thing I wish that owners knew, it wasn't their if your dog is diagnosed with cancer. I have the privilege of knowing more now than I did, when I was younger. And I think people tend to think, is it the food that I gave them? Is it their flea medication? Is it, I think a lot of people tend to think that it's their fault.
It's their fault.
And I think, that would be something that I wish that every owner could forgive themselves and not worry about. We don't have it all figured out. The more we can tell you, we will, to try to prevent cancers, try to intervene sooner, certainly to try to cure them when they happen. But no, I would not want owners to blame themselves. It's a horrible, cancer's a horrible thing. You have enough to deal with, and there's no need for self-blame.
Agreed. That's something that we have to remind people of daily in our work with people who are dealing with dog cancer, is that there is no one thing. And this is one of the oldest diseases that's been around for since the beginning of writing. We have people writing about cancer thousands of years ago. So this is not something that is anybody's fault. It's part of It's part of being alive in a weird way. It's very unfortunate. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Dr. Michelle White.
Yeah, thank you so much for talking with me.
Hoping for a regular dose of hope along with the latest information on dog cancer? Subscribe to our email newsletter, Dog Cancer News, at dogcancernews.com. Each week, we send support, guidance, hope, and information via email to dog lovers just like you. We know what it's like to have a dog with cancer. So join us and subscribe to Dog Cancer News at dogcancernews.com.
Thank you for listening to Dog Cancer Answers. If you'd like to connect, please visit our website at dogcancer.com or call our listener line at 808-868-3200. And here's a friendly reminder that you probably already know. This podcast is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It's not meant to take the place of the advice you receive from your dog's veterinarian. Only veterinarians who examine your dog can give you veterinary advice or diagnose your dog's medical condition. Your reliance on the information you hear on this podcast is solely at your own risk. If your dog has a specific health problem, contact your veterinarian. Also, please keep in mind that veterinary information can change rapidly. Therefore, some information may be out of date. Dog Cancer Answers is a presentation of Maui Media in association with Dog Podcast Network.